It's the Stranger Nerds here with Season 3, Chapter 2, The Mall Rats. So we have myself, Connor Vandermark, Nick Izzo, Tommy Grant. And this was a fun episode. There's a lot of good twists and turns in this. And I'm referee because I haven't seen Nick in 2 episodes now. So we have some catching up to do when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And
I guess so.
I am intrigued by how you're seeing things and how things are going, because it has been a bit since I missed the season finale and the season premiere, because I missed the season finale episode.
Yep.
So I definitely see how you're thinking of things.
I know one of the big highlight questions Nick had at the season finale was, does Billy and Mrs. Wheeler fuck in the next episode? I was like, we will see.
Hold on. I think what matters is the way that I asked that. I didn't really ask it in that way, like in a disgusting way, like, I repulse against this, But I was just curious. I was like,
Like,
I kind of got my answer.
It definitely gave off like the Stacy's mom kind of vibe.
Yes.
For those who don't know, that is a song, I think, by Bowling for Soup. Remember correctly about that?
That sounds right to me.
I'd be surprised if people don't.
But again, I'm saying, like, you don't know who's listening to the podcast. It could be someone who is more a Gen Zer who never even came across that song, because that was popular in our time.
Ugh.
Yeah,
and
you have to remember, Nick, we're slowly getting to the point where we're considered old.
And I almost have to say,
I suppose so.
So you missed the comment last time, Izzo. And I honestly have to agree with Mitchell on this as this season started to play out, where we'll talk about the new characters, the new cast that we have here. And the Mall, as a character, I think was a very nice way to put, like, as a new character, it was a very nice way to put it, how Mitchell did. Because we're seeing a lot of different things revolve around it. It is a very important setting, and the reason I bring it up now is it's kind of funny because we're seeing, like, because us in our how we are, for reference, we're all 29. Nick, you're 28, right?
8. No, 9 now.
You're 29 now. Just turned 29. Yeah. So we're all 29 at the moment.
Are you sure?
Jesus Christ.
Me, Tommy turned 30 in not even maybe 2 months, not even.
Yeah. First week of March, baby.
Yeah.
It's coming up.
And I think it's very interesting because I had this thought watching the episode today, where this is very interesting, especially being after, like, post-COVID, where not many kids, and, like, I want to say post-COVID, but like that, and plus the internet era, where kids don't go to the mall as much. And no. I think it was and when was the season released? Now I'm thinking about it. What was it?
That's a good question. I want to say maybe 2016,
because it wasn't as prevalent.
Stand by.
I want to recap. Release 2019, so literally right before COVID.
Oh yeah, that's right, because there's a big time gap between season 3 and 4. Okay.
So, and I think the fact that this season might be a very interesting time capsule for generations to come, to see, like, because my parents, they grew up at the mall, like, since they lived in that era. My parents were what, 20 something ish when, like, in the 80s. So the fact that we're having this, like, the introduction to the mall, how much is a big hit, like the effect on the middle America, almost like Main Street America, I guess you can say, and the ripples effect from there, and the kind of whole it's becoming a very, like, side plot kind of situation going on here. And then there's us, where the mall is now dying out because online shopping, and the need for a mall isn't as big, and now you're having situations where malls are starting to shut down.
Well, we also grew up in the age where going to a mall by yourself wasn't safe anymore because of the whole, stranger danger, kids getting abducted all the time. Like, we didn't really have that thing where we could just ride our bikes to a mall. Like, we had to be driven there. We were usually supervised at the mall. And now we're in the information age where online shopping is the big thing. And yeah, all malls are pretty much being closed down. I mean, obviously being from Jersey, we're basically at the mall state of the country, and going around every now and then, like, I just see so many stores closed down, and it's just kind of a vacant ghost town.
Honestly, I didn't really have that interaction with, like, I'm not sure with you two, but like, were you guys like mall kids when you're growing up or no?
I mean,
No,
I only
really.
went when my parents had to go shopping. I tried not to go to the mall ever.
So,
I agree.
so
My
I
feet
guess
hurt after like 2 hours.
With the
On my
caveat
bed.
that once I was able to drive, then I did, because we would usually go to the malls with the movie theaters at it, and we would just hang out there until we had to go to see the movie.
yeah.
But other than that, no, I didn't really go to the mall as much.
So for me, I guess I have a little different experience because the fact that so my summer sport was sailing, and with our yacht club being in Perth Amboy, uh, a lot of the people who I sailed with were from different localities. Some are more North Jersey, some are more further out west. So for us, Menlo Mall in Woodbridge was a great meeting spot for everyone because it was still a kind of equidistant to everyone. So there was multiple times where like hey, it was like during the off season, everybody's wanting to hang out. I was like, okay, let's go to all the Menlo, and like I have like few memories of like us all hanging out as a group, like kind of like as the kids. Like it wasn't as packed it is, there. Uh, but like I had the memory, like, oh, we're all going to see a movie this day, and then walk around the mall for 3 hours, and it was just like even more than that. It was like pretty much my parents dropped me and my sister off at like what noon, and they didn't pick us up till like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Like it was an all day affair, and that's something that I was kind of curious with you guys was like, how much you had that, because I had experiences like these kids were like, oh, we're going to go to Carvel or what's the
Well,
Cold
it
Stones
could
is the
be
one,
because you had a sister who probably wanted to go shopping.
but
I didn't. I
it
didn't
was more
have.
so my
We had
yeah
no
no I
reason
can
to go shopping. The longest I was ever been in a mall was probably 2 hours.
but for us though it was more so like it was a meeting point for all our friends
Yeah.
because there was a group, it was a group of like what 10 of us, about give or take plus or minus 3 years age difference of us, the group, and it was just all us hanging out. So it was more so not my sister. My sister would go to the hall herself, but like for me, my incentive was to hang out with my friends. No, fuck around, go see what's around in the stores, or go to GameStop, or fuck around Spencer's. So like to us, it was more like it's an excuse just to be together, and no, it wasn't more like a novelty thing as like it definitely is you see in this season. So, but yeah, that was definitely I'm liking how the mall is becoming a more like a fixture here, and I'm very curious how the Duffer Brothers are going to kind of have it weed its way in its plot. And no, like the title of this episode is "The Mall Rats," and that was something very much a terminology. Like growing up, like for me, was for hockey the rink rats. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
kids just hang at the rink, just doing what they want to do, like they're just scurrying around. But like, of course, this episode is the name of this episode is a double entendre because of the fact that the rats themselves are a huge plot point going on.
Oh
So,
yeah.
any other comments you want to get in before we start?
No, I say we dive right in.
Cool.
Good.
All right. So, touching on so before we start, I want to get Nick's interpretation before we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez.
Did you think Billy died in episode 1?
No.
So you because you went with the Walking Dead idea. I didn't see him die. He's not dead.
Bingo is
Hey.
his name-o. You got it.
And I don't.
That's, I will forever have that notion now, because if a character doesn't talk about it in a later episode, then it just theoretically it never happened. So like it for me, it's got to be confirmed. And
No,
then
hey,
right away in this, I was like, oh, once again,
you
on
called it,
money.
man. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
because I thought you talked. Tommy be my witness. I was like, oh, Billy's dead. Like, it's like
Hmm.
I, uh, I, I guess we could touch on it a little bit. So I did make a prediction of the monster being a conglomerate of corpses and rat bodies. Like it's just like a blood and gore mess. And I was thinking that Billy wouldn't be dead in the sense that he is like I thought he was not going to be himself, as in I thought he was going to be like
He was gonna be part of
in
this like big glump monster.
I thought it was gonna be infused like in the body of the monster, and then like I was crossing fingers hoping that this monster would actually talk through Billy, like because we
Yeah.
never the monsters yet have not.
We haven't seen the end of this story yet, Connor.
I understand that, but like I was kind of hoping the monster would actually use like be Billy be part of the monster, and the Billy would actually be like a speaking piece of the monster. And I was like, ooh, that would be fun. Like I was kind of hoping for that kind of thing. So like not dead in the sense of dead. Like I think it would be dead, but like the monster would kind of like infuse into him.
Yeah.
So opening scene.
That's fair.
So Billy's running out of the Steelworks building, which I was like, okay, he's alive. And then he drives to a phone booth, call for help, and he gets a light flickering, and then he's I'm looking at this, reading the show notes through. I didn't see the tentacle attaching to his mouth during that scene.
It was a very quick when it was like constantly flashing from when he was attacked. You do see a couple images where it's the same where it happened to Will, where it was like on his mouth. And it was
Yeah,
like pulsating on his mouth.
I did not catch that through that
It's a
scene.
very very quick shot.
Because he's now in the upside down, which that was kind of confusing me because I just kind of pop right there, and he found like a kind of a herd of people approaching him in the mist and shadows, and then he sees a uninjured version of himself. So this is something that we have not seen before of I won't say doppelgangers. It's something that kind of went through my mind, like, oh, maybe that. But like some version of reflection of him. But like we're definitely seeing, as we learned later on, kind of a possession. And later on we see that he looks very sick. He's significantly worse than Will, as in his demeanor. It seems like he's affected by the light, very daisy. And then Karen goes to apologize to him about standing him up the night before, and that scene, the fake out of him like killing Karen, that got me. I was like, whoa, did not see that coming.
That was a big trick.
Yeah.
Like I think everybody got fooled by that the first time. I know I did because I was like, "Holy shit!"
Literally, I typed my own show notes like what the fuck moment with Billy. Like I was like, holy, and the fact that like he kind of tells her off. It's like, hey, leave me alone. No, I think he called her by her first name, Karen. It's like, leave me alone, Karen, and just kind of like dipped and went to his stand where you can see that kind of infected cut too, which is kind of gnarly. And he's definitely seeming to fight it harder than Will, or he looks more impacted than Will did. Will was kind of just going through the motions, kind of being himself, but not really. It looks like actually more like a sickness to, at least to my eye, at this. So
It's kind of looking at Will's possession from a different angle, because whenever Will, like what I used to comment on in last season, when Will would speak and you weren't sure if it was him speaking or the monster speaking, I feel like that's kind of what they're showing in this, by the fact that Billy in his head can see versions of the monster that are forming as himself. So it's he can almost communicate, and we see a little bit more of how he communicates with the monster.
Mhm.
Whereas Will, we just knew it was in his head. We didn't see how anything really happened.
But you made the put in the show note, but like because 6 months has passed since the initial the mind flare showing up, and we looks like it, and from what we've seen, there is a scene in the shower where we get a quick glimpse, and he sees the mind flare. Like it was a not even a second. It was like a half second thing. I had to, like pause and like, was that it? And it definitely was. So it looks like the mind flare is still pulling the strings, at least to my vantage point here. And it could be a new variant. You know, viruses do change over time once they have been affected. No, as we know, there's no gate open at the moment. Maybe Russia has something to do with this. We haven't really touched on that yet. But we don't know if the we know the mind flare is a intelligent creature. We don't know if it changed its own tactics.
So I will give a slight hint because I posed a question last season about this. I won't say anything more.
Okay.
But
what's the question you posed?
Well, I don't know if I should even say it, but it was something that I mentioned last season because if I say it, it'll probably give it away.
Yeah, don't say it. I don't want to ruin this.
Nick in the finale.
That completely contradicts what you started with.
Like, I say no because I don't want hints here. I like to discover this as I go along and as I talk with you.
I won't give any like actual hint, but what this monster is, we've seen a touch of it. And when we get the reveal, you'll be like, "Oh shit! How did I not catch that?"
Well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
So the other thing too that we're seeing is because again we don't know how the monster communicated with Will, which I think is a very good point.
Yep.
On the same time, though, I definitely do think that Billy does look much more sickly. I do think this is a separate thing because the way that was transmitted to Billy looks to be much different than what it was transmitted to Will.
Yes, and I think there's two factors that go into this, and it's one, the strength of this new monster, because with the gate being closed, it should have no connection to the Upside Down, so we don't know how strong this creature even is, and also the strength of Billy versus Will. Billy we know is a fighter. Will is by no means a fighter. So I think Billy is fighting the possession so hard that it's starting to really impact his physical health.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd rather just go right into it and just talk about the final scene coming up. I just might as well.
Yeah.
Because this is all Billy plot here.
Yes.
Pretty much.
So Billy has the vision of of himself saying, was it himself or was it oh yeah, so yeah, right. So Billy visions for himself saying, "Bill, what you see," and he was like confused because this is when Tim. It looked like a flashback to him talking to the monster earlier, and like Billy was like, "What do you mean, Bill, what you see?" Like, I don't get what you're trying to throw down here. Yep. And then we get the next vision of Heather, the other lifeguard, saying, "Take me to him." And then he kind of like snaps out of it a way. Like you see Heather actually saying, "Are you okay? Do you need to call 911? Get an ambulance?"
Yep.
And then he just attacks her. And then we get to the final scene where I was like, you see Billy come out of the car. I'm like, I don't see. I thought like Billy would try to coax Heather like into the trying to be like a naughty kid, like like one of the bad boys living on the edge. Naughty kid. I couldn't think the right name. I couldn't think the right word of it. Naughty.
Oh my god.
But like trying to be like when I was like, oh, I'm edgy and we're gonna go hook up in this steel mill. I thought how he was gonna play it out. But when he walks around and opens the trunk, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
Nah.
But again, like he had the attack scene, so I don't know why that went through my head because I guess it was a decent amount from there.
Yeah.
Because we did see that he did attack her. But in my mind, that was still in my head. I was like, is she in the passenger seat? But once he opened the trunk, I was like, oh no. And then we get the. So he's down in the basement with the steel mill with her.
Mm-hmm.
Places her to the ground. Aggressively holds her down. It's like, don't be afraid, and pulls off the
tape.
The duct tape. And it's like, we'll all be over soon. Just stay very still. And then we see the shift to the giant goo. So I called it the goop to my girlfriend while she was like, because my girlfriend's already seen this before. And I just call it, the giant goop. Just the goop of flesh and blood of rats. And
I called it evil flubber.
Evil flubber.
Nice.
Not wrong. Yeah, and so the camera shifts to the arm of the goop. And then, we get the nice scream from Heather. So
now I'll ask, what do you and Nick think happened to Heather?
So my thought right now, after seeing the effect of Billy, I think the monster's going to start growing his army.
So are you saying you think that the monster basically created a new weapon with Heather, and Heather's kind of like how Billy is now, or
yes,
or the monster consumed Heather?
No, I think the monster is the goop, but Heather is going to be the next. It's going to be in the next Billy, and their goal is to create more people to kind of infiltrate the town and take it over.
Interesting.
I'm seeing a lot of head nods from Nick over here.
Yeah, like 1,000%, like with you on that. I think the build what you see, Billy sees a whole bunch of people, so the monsters building people, and I think
that's a good catch.
Ready? This is also how I think of this show is, this monster to me it kind of reminds in the progression of this. Honestly, it reminds me of Pokemon, and the reason I say that is
catch them all.
Is because its moves and abilities keep evolving. So, like you just said, Connor, the monster itself is the whatever the goop inside of the
Ass Ketchum.
Yeah, whatever we're gonna call this thing. So that's the monster, but one of its abilities is possession, and I think that's what's gonna happen here.
Ooh, what? It's Grimer or Muck.
Definitely Muck.
Muck is the bigger
Muck's
one
that has arms, right?
Definitely,
yes.
Yeah. Muck's got arms.
I think
that's
Grimer
why I
arms.
thought of it because I was like, wow,
they both have arms.
I was like, this thing looks like Muck.
No, they both have arms.
Well, either way, that Pokemon evolutionary arc is what I think of.
That's exactly what made me think of it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh wow, that's Muck. Like Muck's about to just possess the shit out of her.
I guess the other thing too is like you were talking about tropes. I won't say tropes, but like motifs last episode, Tommy, of like, how the first season was more ET paranormal kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Then second season was more Exorcist kind of like with the possession. This one doesn't feel more possession to me like Will was. Like this is starting to get in the vibe of more zombie-esque. And I'm kind of curious because what comes a lot of zombie movies, malls are a big thing.
To a close of this season, I want you to come back to me with that because I have a very perfect movie analogy, but if I say what it is, it'll completely give it away. So I can't say it, but we'll definitely touch back on that.
I think I know what you're talking about because I've also seen a very similar movie. I'm like trying so hard to remember what the name is.
I'm covering my face. Just give a
no. Just text him.
I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you later about it. Don't worry.
We won't spoil anything else or anyone else. But like this,
Nick,
this was
not right this second because I wanted to see if I can like think of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm definitely getting like zombie-esque vibes right now because like malls are very much a very classic place where zombie movies and games like to use as a hub or a large location for like a zombie
Mhm.
fight. 'Cause it's fun. Like, no, things just go around and like,
Yep.
no, it adds to the excitement. So, anything else with the Billy line?
No, I think that kind of covers it. It was a very brief amount of scenes we get Billy in this episode, but they are definitely crucial to the overall arc of the season.
Yes. So let's go over with.
I actually have one more thing to add. I don't
Shoot.
know if this is a lot of foreshadowing here, but I just want to say that whoever and whatever the main monster and thing that's pulling the strings here is the laziest son of a bitch ever in terms of villains, because they're just deploying everything that they can in terms of monsters besides itself. So like, I don't even think this is like
You mean like a general?
yeah, I don't even think this is like the last of it. Like this goo thing. I'm like, like something's behind this thing now. Like that's just like how my mind is going is like as this is happening. Because I'm like there's no way that this thing is now behind it. So I'm just like kind of waiting to
Hey.
see like who's really behind this.
Hey, the best villains have the most minions. So
They just deploy the henchmen, and then you're like, all right,
exactly.
come on, like when are you gonna fight?
But the thing is, like, no, the smart villains aren't the ones who tend to get their hands dirty. They make other people do their work.
But if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself.
Well,
Spoken like
currently
a true
speaking,
villain there, Nick.
but hey, in the monster's
I rest
mind,
my
Billy could be
case.
doing a damn good job because he
He
already 6
is
seconds.
he is a vessel for this thing right now. That's what he is. He is a
But now
vessel
also think though,
carrying
Nick,
out the mission.
if this monster is in any way connected to the monsters we've seen previously, it has been taken down by 11 twice.
Yes.
Why would it just
Correct.
reveal itself again just to be defeated by 11? It's trying to be more strategic.
Build up, evolution, wait
Yeah,
time.
it's getting
The
smarter.
longer see now I think of this as you've obviously seen Fantastic Four, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think of this as Doctor Doom when he stays in the like the oh man, what's it called, like the phantom quantum zone, like whatever it is. When the longer he stays in there, the more powerful he gets. That's what I feel like the monster is. The longer he stays in here, the more powerful he is.
So, Tommy, you just made a interesting point, I guess you can say, and
That's
I'm
my
gonna
theory.
I'm gonna tie this back into D&D because D&D is definitely an overarching thing in
Yes,
this.
please do. We need more D&D threads in this show.
So a very big trope when it comes to multiple D&D games is the fact that you have what we call the BBEG, or the big bad evil guy. So the big trope with the big bad evil guy is that they're never actually dead. They always keep coming back somehow.
Kind of like Loki.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, yeah.
Sounds
I think
about right.
Loki's a good way to put it. But like, and the thing is, like, every time that the party would fight the big bad evil guy, no, there's always some other new trick up his sleeve that he's trying to do. You know, for example, we haven't got further from my campaign right now in my current campaign, but we have currently been harassed by his minions, as we know of, and every time that we try to, we don't know the bad guy is yet, but he's still poking at us and trying to provoke us. So currently we're seeing
that's what this feels like. It's just jabs.
Yeah, he's jabbing and trying to find a weakness. So I'm curious. I'm definitely curious how intelligent this is going to get. All right, let's continue.
It's all recon. But yes,
Hey, you need intelligence sometimes when it comes to making good decisions. All right, let's move on. Let's go to Hopper. because oh man, this stirs a lot of shit going on. Hopper is a trigger for a lot of the events of this episode.
Oh yeah.
So Hopper observes a phone call between Eleven and Mike. Uh, Eleven saying Mike is 15 minutes late. Mike tries to stick with Hopper's lie that his grandma is sick, and Hopper told him it was a false alarm, which I was like, oh, you got like even the reaction of Mike was like, you gotta be kidding me! Like they're blowing that. So
Red-handed in the lie.
no, the better part, I don't know if this ever happened to you with landlines. Again, things that the next generation would not know compared to us.
Oh yes.
Is parents or siblings listening in on your phone conversations?
I have to say, me and my brother used to play a game because, like, you'd always hear kind of like a little click if another phone would kind of tap in within the house. Me and my brother would always play the game of we try and listen in on my parents' calls without getting caught.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd always have a big game of like one person would kind of like go in the room where my parents were, and the other would go pick up the phone, and we'd always be able to see each other, and we'd just see how long we could listen until one of them figured out like, wait, is somebody else on the line?
Yes, I've used to do that too. But like having the mom listen in, and it's like, wait, Nana's not dead. Like Nana's fine.
Did Nana call you?
Yeah, and Elle's even more pissed off. I was like, oh my god. And then Mike gets mad at his mom, and it was like such a great scene in that one. I enjoyed that interaction so much. Hopper's overjoyed, and I thought the very nice of like, oh, don't mess around with Jim. But that was very on point in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And go sees Joyce. Hopper lies Joyce that he took her advice and handled the situation based on her, and convinced her like, oh, it's fixed. We don't worry about it. Let's go out to dinner.
Which, to be fair, he did start with the intention of following Joyce's instructions until Mike acted like a douche, and then Hopper said, fuck it. Doing things my way.
That is true. The thing is, like as we mentioned in the last episode, like there could have been much better ways that Hopper could have like there's a line you can draw of like, don't be a shithead. No, let's actually talk seriously. But no, I digress. So then Hopper's like, oh, it's not going to be a date. But in Hopper's mind, it definitely is a date because later on he goes get some real nice clothes from J.C. Penney's. Oh, I had a real good laugh about that one. Yeah, J.C. Penney's is cutting edge. LOL. That's what I wrote in my notes.
Back in those days, that was the place to go, and that's why I hated going to the mall, because whenever I had to go with my parents, we'd always get stuck in fucking Sears and J.C. Penney's and Macy's for like an hour, and I hated it.
Hey, I like Sears. Rip to that store.
To try on clothes that I didn't care to try on. Ugh.
And of course, I always try the tactic of just agreeing to the first thing they pick out. And then I go, well, what about this? What about this? Like, no, I'm good with this. Let's just go.
And then it's, oh, you don't know if you don't try on.
Exactly.
Like,
I was a weird kid, though. I was not very, like, it took me a while to actually get my fashion sense.
I still haven't found it.
I'm sorry to hear that, bud.
My fashion sense is either sweatpants and a hoodie or jeans and a flannel.
I have a smidge. I have enough that I need, but I will always go comfort over everything.
I don't know. I like polo. I like collar shirts. I feel like flannel's always nice, but like, no, a nice polo is always good. Having to throw a sweater on top of it. So, Nick, how you feeling about this potential Hopper trying to get with Joyce here?
Because in the past you've been very vocal about how much you didn't want this to happen, and every time you said it, I knew. I was like, oh, just wait till season 3.
I mean, the way I feel about it now, I don't know. I still can't say that I'm like, I'm like, oh yeah, like, all giddy about it, but I guess I don't like hate it at the same time. I just think it's just like, I think it's out of convenience more than anything at this point. It's like they've been through so much, and like they're the only ones that they can talk to about really what they've been through, that they can understand. So it's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of, It's
But
like
I do
it
see
seems
your
like
point
it's
as to
there
why
and
you
not there at the
didn't
same
want it to
time.
happen, because I've seen so many TV shows that once they get this like relationship that seems to be a fan hit, all they do is focus on that relationship, and the show
Yeah,
just takes a turn,
yeah.
and then people hate it. And yeah, so
Like,
that if they did that, then yeah, the show probably would have went downhill very quickly.
I
And
think
it's
it's
six
just better
months.
if they just stay as friends. Honestly,
Yeah,
just leave it that way.
and
Like
is
if
six
you were high
months really
school,
enough
sweetheart,
time to
school.
get over Bob the Great?
That was
Yeah,
my point.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Good point too.
way
I
too soon
yeah,
because Joyce hasn't been in a relationship in a while. Meets Bob, falls head over heel for him, and they've been dating for what a good like solid almost a year. After the events of the first season, um, and yeah, like the fact that Bob had such a good connection with Joyce, and as we see in the first episode with that flashback scene of her telling Hopper, "I don't want to go dinner," and then her sitting eating the leftover lasagna and reminiscing about a show that her and Bob used to love. And to me, that was a clear like sign to me. I'm like, oh, Joyce wants to stay friends. But at this moment, that's it. It's way too early. Isn't like, oh, she broke up with Bob. No, Bob fucking died and
Hmm.
died to save her son.
yeah. They both
Like,
watched it happen too. That's the thing.
I'm
And
like,
And
it's
you
like
notice
6 months
Hopper didn't
after, like,
try
come
to save Bob. Hmm.
on. No, no.
I think Bob was dead when he was dead. Like, I don't think
I know.
anything Hopper could do about it. But like, still, like,
He couldn't get a shot,
as someone,
which he
I
actually probably couldn't. But
Bob, not Bob. As we've seen so far in this whole arc of Hopper so far in these first two seasons, Hopper has no actual emotional intelligence,
No, not at all.
no,
and
no.
it's blindly showing here, where he wants to go get dinner and not a date, and then trying to go get dinner with Joyce, and I guess trying to make like again you don't dress that nicely for a dinner with friends.
No.
And especially with that restaurant too. It's like that restaurant is a nicer restaurant with live music, and like that was very upscale, and
Yeah.
especially even for a small town like theirs. So I was like you're definitely sending mixed signals here, Hopper, and not the right one.
Yeah, you don't set a
So
reservation there if it ain't a date.
And are we not going to mention that he had his secretary go out shopping for him to get him this Hawaiian shirt?
yes,
Oh yeah, yeah, that too.
he had
Yeah,
a very Miami Vice style.
Yes, I think that's what they were going for.
Well, they to the T, great. So Hopper goes to handle the situation in the mayor's office. And then Joyce, and meanwhile, Joyce knows a bunch of magnets fall off the fridge. We'll start with Hopper at the mayor's office first. So Hopper is waiting to see the mayor, sees the whole protest going on, walks through it. Uh, notices a large man in motorcycle gear walking out of that office. Okay. I'm assuming that is relevant later.
Yes.
Hopper has an interaction with the mayor and see a bit of an ego standoff between the two. Realizes that the mayor is walking the gray area and is probably a crooked politician, which I agree with from what you're pointing out here, Tommy. I do think that I don't know. I would say crooked is the right word, but stereotypical, I think, is the best way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, you can see that the mayor is clearly using Hopper for his own
Yeah.
personal gain. Like he basically called him for a favor, say, "Hey, go take care of them. I need this for re-election." Him and Hopper kind of have that like, well, is this the right thing to do? And the mayor's kind of like, well, if you want your job to continue, you're going to go out there and flash a little badge and send them on their way. So he's definitely trying to keep Hopper in his pocket, which obviously we know Hopper doesn't really go for that kind of shit.
Another thing too is he's trying to put Hopper in his place. It was like, oh, they didn't get a permit for this protest. Have to go to the right channels. I was like, ooh, trying to undermine his authority. Like you're not doing your job. And I thought that was very interesting. I could definitely see those two butting heads in the future. Then we get the the set up where Hopper gets a new shirt from the secretary, and then meanwhile Joyce, and she's going to the store looking through these textbooks. I guess you got them from the library.
Mm-hmm.
No lie, I have a textbook look just like the one Joyce is going through. Like literally, like it's not the same, but it looks very similar. Like that single colored blue book. That's no.
I was actually going to ask you when we got to this part, because I was like, with all the science shit that they're talking about, I was like, I feel like Connor deals with this stuff, but I was like, I don't know for sure.
As someone who works with physics education, no, it was like, oh, that textbook I literally used when I was studying in college, or very similar. It was electricity and magnetism textbook. And I gotta say, props to, I know she's not doing much at work, but like, props to Joyce trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And you can definitely see where Will gets it from with the curiosity. And so Joyce gets the bright idea of, wait, why don't I just talk to someone who actually would know more? And then shows up at Mr. Clark's house.
The legendary Mr. Clark.
Oh, man.
That was
Mr. Clark is great.
Epic way to introduce his character in this episode.
Because when I was going through, he's painting his minis, and it looks like little Legolas kind of style elf archer.
Mm-hmm.
And I get through. I'm hearing the song in the background. The garage opens, and then it actually goes like, oh, the My Bologna part of the song. I was like, wait, hold on, what? This is Weird Al.
Yep.
I had to reverse the whole thing, start the whole scene again. I was like, yeah.
The first time I watched this episode, I was laughing so hard. I was like, Mr. Clark would be a Weird Al fan.
Oh yeah,
that was.
Yeah, my girlfriend Danielle did not even pick out was Weird Al. I was like, yeah, that was a great entrance for me. I was like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, that was My Bologna. And I have not seen the Weird Al movie yet. That's definitely on the list.
I've heard it was great. I have not seen it either.
Daniel Radcliffe. Oh,
I have not either.
I'm so excited to watch that. That's on the list. So
we'll have to tell Mitchell that we need to add that to his podcast.
Yes, I think it'd be good, like a little Stranger Things one to talk about Weird Al, because Weird Al is, again, this is when his prime was in the 80s.
Yep,
and it really started to take off. So that was, I don't know about you guys, but I love Weird Al growing up.
Oh yeah. I didn't listen to him all the time, but like I knew like the big hit songs, and I definitely was a fan of those.
I had a good there was definitely some songs that I took off from LimeWire that was like Weird Al adjacent, and like
LimeWire, yes,
LimeWire,
I use LimeWire.
For those who don't know, Aries too, yeah. For those who don't know, LimeWire and Aries is a music stripping service back in the 2000s, and sometimes you would download a song that had like a radio edit where it had like the weird intro musics or the intro radio signifier.
Back before the days of Spotify.
Or sometimes it wouldn't be a song at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
I thought the Bill Clinton one.
Bringing back his memories.
I think you're downloading a Family Guy episode, and the next thing you know, oof.
Just Google that for those who are interested. So he gives a little mini lesson about electromagnetism, and he talks about how magnets work. I actually kind of touched on it last episode where Tom was asked about the magnets.
Yep.
Where if the magnets were electromagnets, if they'd have current going through them, then they would fall. When they have current, they would usually stick, and that's what he's showing. That's what's showing Joyce here, where he's taking what's called a rheostat, which changes the voltage going through and the current going through the our wonderful apparatus here through the copper solenoid, and as he drops the current, the magnet falls because it's no longer magnetic. So for those who, that is I believe it would be I think iron could do that. Yeah, just need a metallic.
Is that going to be on the test at the end of the season?
It will not be. It will not.
Okay. Oof.
Should we start referring to as Dr. Vandermark?
Yeah, I didn't know.
I don't have a PhD.
I don't know if I should be taking notes or not.
No, I will get my master's one day, but no. PhD is too much money and work. So the hypothetical he gives, though, is talking about, because Joyce is asking, well, how can my magnets not work if, like, at home and at Menards, there's the place she works at. And it talks about, like, oh, it has to be a very large interference that we're seeing here, like a voltage that's so high. And the first thing when he said that, I was like, oh, is the thunderstorm going to play an impact in this too? Because thunder is something that has a lot of, is a quick burst of large amount of voltage at once, and that could set things off, or something of that nature. That's something that kind of, because we've been seeing a lot of thunderstorm as things go happening again. Like there was one scene with the Billy, was like a thunderstorm in the background of what he's in the area he's in the Upside Down. So I was like, large voltages, but we're seeing that it's going to take an enormous amount of power. The other thing that popped up too is maybe the stupid Russian thing that we were building 6 months ago or a year ago is now in Hawkins, as we'll get to in a little bit. So we get back to Hopper as the scene's going on with Mr. Clark and Joyce. Also, I did really like the interaction between Joyce and Mr. Clark, though. Like I felt that was nice for Joyce to kind of touch back into what Bob liked.
Yep.
And I thought that was, I thought it was kind of like, sweet overall. Like I don't think that Joyce has an interest in Mr. Clark, but I thought it was very sweet overall. Like, oh, she does still miss Bob a lot.
And it's funny you mention that, because in the last season after Bob's killed, they mentioned that, like, how Bob started the AB club and he taught Mr. Clark all that he knew.
Yes.
So it's kind of like seeing Bob's, I guess, student maybe, or colleague at some point.
Mentor and the mentee.
Yeah. And you definitely see Mr. Clark just has that passion for teaching, because like he's talking to her as if she's a student half the time, like he's talking to a kid.
I wouldn't even say that too, because the fact that, I don't know if you had any teachers when you in high school that were like that. For me, it was Dr. Chucker, where he would keep, when he talks to you, he gives you the same respect. Like he doesn't look down on someone when he teaches. He teaches as someone who sees as someone who's curious. Like he even mentions it, like, oh, he mentions the polio vaccine in '53 and us landing on the moon in '68. Us as Americans, that is. Like, curiosity brings that, and he loves seeing people being curious about things. And he doesn't care who's bringing the curiosity. That's why he loves the boys so much, because the fact that they're always wanting to know more, and he always graciously accepts that wanting of knowledge and feels that. And as someone who works in education myself, that's something that I love seeing from people who really do love teaching what they're doing. So that's why I don't see, like, he sees Joyce as another inquisitive learner. I wouldn't even see him as a student. So, and then meanwhile, Hoppers is stood up,
stewing away.
Yeah,
he is stewing away. Oh, I felt bad for Hopper, and we can't blame Joyce. But at the same time, it's just, I think Hopper put his expectations up a little too high. And this is the first time he's really been vulnerable since season 2, when he opened up to 11 in the car.
Yeah.
Like, this is the only time we've really seen Hopper excited about something. And yeah, you can tell he's crushed.
Mm-hmm. So
he went through a lot of bread, you could tell. With each piece, it was just, it was sad. I really felt for him.
So on the way out, he bumps into one of our Russian friends, Grigory, the Russian hitman from the last episode in the opening scene. And also, so he was the man walking out of the mayor's office.
Correct.
So I didn't. Was there any indication of that from the scene, or did we get along to that later on?
No, it's just because I'm trying to think how, because in the first episode of the season, when we have that when their little reactor thing explodes, and he's the one that kills the lead scientist.
Yes.
And then, so we know his face, and then earlier in the episode when he's walking, we get a slight glimpse of what he's wearing. and it's the
Ah,
motorcycle gear. That's
the
the
clothes.
giveaway.
Okay.
So when Hopper bumps into him, you see the same, leather jacket and the helmet, and then you see his face, and you're like, oh shit, that's the Russian guy from last episode.
So why are they meeting with the mayor too? So that
Exactly.
poses a good question about that. So on the other branching point of Hopper's wonderful stirring of shit, we are going to the party where I thought was a very sweet, where we get the situation where Elle's mad at Mike and Ghost seeks out Max for help. And really nice bonding moment between Elle and Max and the whole little. I was like, no, very funny how it's like it's the same. The boys are talking, the girls are talking at the same time about each other. No, the other comment of two is Lucas and Max breaking up 5 different times in 6
Yeah,
months.
I was like, what
Yeah.
the hell? I'm like, come on.
Oh my
Jesus.
god.
What are we doing here?
They're just that couple in high school. It's like every other week they're back together.
Yeah. So Lucas is trying to give Mike some pointers of trying to get back in Elle's good graces. No, he's like, "Oh, you screwed up, man. You dumb fucked up." And the and then on the flip side, we get Max telling Elle like, "Oh, you gotta be cold to him. Like, you don't give him the time of day. Don't answer his phone calls. Make him want you back." And
Max is vicious. I love it.
yeah, and then we get a nice little again talk about Weird Al and Madonna from the Weird movie. No, nice Material Girl gets
Yep.
playing as they're going in whatever stores that they're in, getting dressed up. It was a nice like mall scene in this one where the girls are trying new outfits on. Elle's another part of Elle finding herself as an actual human being.
Yep.
Learning what she likes. I thought it was a very cute little montage there. And meanwhile, Mike, Lucas, and Will are searching the mall for the apology gift, and like they go see the trinket at the what was the jewelry store place again? I feel it was a more.
I didn't even
one.
get a chance to look at the store name. I don't think it was a well-known name, at least not to
No,
my
it
knowledge.
was. It
Oh,
was. It was like Kay's Jeweler or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't even.
Like
I
I
didn't pay
saw
attention to that.
I saw the name of the jewelry store employee shirt. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a popular jewelry store. But it was like, oh, the $300 little teddy bear trinket,
Oh,
and
jewelry, man.
it's so expensive sometimes. But it is worth it when it comes.
Sometimes it's always expensive. If you want the
Depends.
good, if you want the good
Hey.
stuff, it's always expensive.
You can find deals when you need to. Hey, you can buy rubies online for dirt cheap. So,
How do you know?
because
See, someone's been meddling around the black market.
it's more so the fact that
Interesting.
lab-grown jewelry is much cheaper, and the way that it's created is a lot more efficient than not using actual, people mining it and them dying. So, but yeah, it's like it was like on a Reddit post one day. I was like, oh, this is really cheap. If you just know, there's different sites that do them, and I looked online, like, oh, you can buy a bag of rubies of like. No, they're smaller, like something you put like a setting in for a ring or a necklace. You can buy a bag of them for like $20. It's like, oh, I got a bag of rubies. I don't have that, but you can do that.
Don't lie. We know there's somewhere behind you. There's some drawer with just a whole drawer full of just random jewelry.
No, there's not. I could like 3D print them. Has like have in settings in them. Really interesting.
You should.
That'd be pretty cool. So, as they're going through, and I feel bad for Will too, being the third wheel for those two, because Will wants to play D&D.
Consistently the third wheel.
Oh, I feel so bad. And I like the comment with Steve, who's like confused, like why Elle's like, you're not even supposed to be here, right? Like, what are you doing?
Steve tries to care, but he's just like, I don't have the time to focus on this.
Yeah.
Which is completely fair.
And then, and it's funny too how they're playing it, where like they're always like two ships in the night, where it's like they're always passing each other, not knowing. And then you get a final scene where the boys are outside, the girls walk outside, they see each other, and Elle's just pissed and dumps his ass, and board the bus, and they both giggle and eat their ice cream and sayonara, which good for Elle. not deal with that shit.
Yep.
But
She's
also,
finally a little
but
free.
also a little hot. But I won't say free though. But like Hopper is the reason why this all happening. Was for real.
Yeah, but it's also, I mean, I'm not a girl, but I would say freedom in terms of like femininity, because she's always been under the thumb of a dominant male figure, from the doctors at the lab to Hopper, who basically kept her trapped in a cabin for like 2 years now at this point. And now she's not necessarily under Mike's thumb, but Mike's definitely possessive over her to a certain degree. So it's like
I
now she
want.
finally has that like little bit of a freedom moment where it's like, I now have a friend that's a girl that can teach me things and show me the ways, and she
I
definitely cuts loose.
I think a good way to put it is because I wouldn't say Mike is possessive and some sort. But the thing is, like, Elle does look forward to seeing Mike. It's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
late. You're 15 minutes late. Where the hell are
Mhm.
you? I think more it's a codependency between them both.
Yeah, that's a
Where
better way to put it.
because Elle does love Mike, but Mike is really all she knows when it comes to feelings. And like on with the other side of the coin is her not getting out. She never really experienced society yet.
Yep.
And with those two things, were like I think her bridging this friendship with Max is very good for her. And I really enjoyed how the directors kind of played that out, because it's another way for her to actually find out who she is.
Yeah.
So, and then let's get to the I like how you put this in the show, Doc, the real power tree of the show, where Steve is so happy to see Dustin, and Robin's little
Well,
comment
it's
of
just
like,
that first comment, like you just see Dustin like with Robin, like, "Hey, I'm Dustin." It's like, "Yeah, that's nice." And he's like, "Where is he?" And just Steve comes out like, "Henderson!" Just like that whole interaction was just perfect.
very much Big Brother. They have the secret handshake that they do.
Yes.
Like Robin's like, another child that you're friends with. I was like, oh, just stab it a little more.
That was a perfect comment, because even he was a little taken back by it. He's like, yeah.
So,
But again,
Steve
it's what I keep saying. Steve has fully embraced the fact that he's not necessarily a loser, but a loser in a sense, and that these kids are basically his main friend group at this point.
but like, there's nothing like as someone who's like coached like kids, like especially when I was in high school, like you could have kids who definitely become like more buddy with you than other kids are. No, because like in a way, like it's kind of a situation where Dustin does see Steve as a role model, but Steve also sees Dustin as someone who does not give a shit and just wants to have fun. And I think Steve is definitely enjoying that fact of I have someone who I can kind of bond with who's outside my usual scope of people.
Yep.
And I enjoy being with him.
And they don't really judge each other, because you have that whole scene where they're sitting down and Dustin's eating all the free ice cream that Steve got him. And he's just telling him all about Susie, and like the one comment of like how Susie likes the fact that he doesn't have teeth because kissing is better. And Steve just
he gives him a look.
Like, what?
I love his reaction to that. He's just like, yeah, great. Like,
whatever
I'm
works
happy
for you,
man. Yeah, great.
Pretty much. So Dustin breaks down to Steve. I love the little like trying to silently whisper to him that like, oh, there's a Russian there's a Russian communication he intercepted, and like then he like after the third try like they kind of like bust out yelling.
Yep.
And everybody kind of gives him a look.
I really wish in this scene that they would have like had like one of those weird shots like where they looked all the way across the mall and there's some dude just like perked his head up like, oh shit, and packed up a laptop and walked away. Like
that would have made it a lot of sense, honestly.
Right.
Don't give things away too early though.
No, but it would have been fun. Like, it would have been like one of those like off-screen things where like Dustin and Steve don't see him, but we as the audience, like, some random like Russian-looking dude just kind of gets up, is like, oh, and just walks away. That would have been a great scene.
So then they're in the back of the wonderful ice cream place, and no, Steve on his break, and they're trying to figure out this Russian language, and then of course at the time we have Lucas's little sister trying out all the ice cream.
Mhm.
Ramon's like, oh, I'm done with this shit. Like, what the fuck is Steve? like he needs to do some work. Heads in the back, kind of rings out Steve, like, dude, what the hell are you doing? And like they're talking about the Russian code, and well, she's like, it's like, oh, we're doing something very top secret. It's like, oh, the Russian transmission, you guys like, how'd you know about them? Like, you're so damn loud. Like,
Yeah, like I wish they had shown that too, because like she's basically been sitting up there dealing with all these annoying kids, but in the meanwhile, she's probably listening in the back of her head, just Steve and Dustin just talking about Russian shit for the whole time. She's like, what is going on back there?
like very much, I now see Robin as like the big sister too, of like the I can see them all being a family or just being like the shit talking to each other. And
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I was like, yeah, like doing the pig Latin, because that was
Yeah.
something my sister used to do, is pig Latin. And once she brought that out, I'm like, oh my god. And it's like you know Russian? I'm like, no, like you guys even know what the hell I'm talking about. Like you can't
Mhm.
recognize Russian in the first place. And gives them some kind of quick schooling. Like, yeah, you don't have to freaking write letters up. Like you don't know shit. So
I also love how she was so pissed off at Dustin for erasing her Steve Stucks board.
yes. I was like, I'm doing Valor research here. What are you doing? And yeah, so she convinces them like, hey, I'm bored of shit. Let me in on this.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve's like, all right, convince you. And then like they get all excited, like, we got a sentence. Woo! And Steve's like, cool, we got one sentence, like, I guess.
And
And
it's
then
it's just the week is long, and it's like there's no context. You're just like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah. So, and the other comment too is the only thing that Steve picks up on is the music in the background. It's like, huh, I know
Mhm.
that sounds familiar to me. And then once they close, the whole mall is closed. They're the last store that people there in the mall. They close up. They're talking. They decipher they translated the message they received, which was the wonderful. I don't think we can still have it up here.
I have it on the last episode. I didn't put it on this one.
Yeah. So they decipher the message. They translate the message. No, I love how Robin's like, it's like, yeah, I don't really agree with Little Brats, but like, he's on to something here. I think this is a code too. And I thought it was really sweet. Like Robin's like, all right, this kid's pretty cool. Like I'm with, like I see where this is going. And then Steve stops right at the one,
The Indiana Flyer.
the Indiana Flyer, the little horsey ride thing. And he's like, give me a quarter. I'm like, the other two are like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then Steve has the bright moment of like, oh shit, this is in Hawkins because this is the same damn song, and they don't make this kind of shit in Russia. And it's like I think they're here. And that was kind of the big
Hawkins, but at the mall itself, because I don't
Yeah.
think there's any other places where that horse is in that town.
Exactly. And or at least in America, like at least in America, but like they're suspecting, oh, the Russians are here, which as the viewer we know.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is it kind of realization is like, oh, we could be American heroes. Like they're real on the case now, which is like fun. And then on the flip side of this whole thing going on is we have Nancy and Drew, or the Nancy Drew. That's Nancy and Drew. Nancy Drew. I saw your little tagline. Nancy Drew goes on the case
because that's
Nancy
what they
and Drew.
tease her of being in
Yes.
this episode is Nancy Drew.
So Nancy and Jonathan go skip work, go find out the lead that with the pestilent rats. And Mrs. Driscoll, such a sweet old woman, like with the fresh squeezed lemonade. Oh, like that's your typical go-to grandma right there. Wonderful. Like I could see her making us cookies. So she goes, surprised how young they are. As they're kind of poking around, they talk about like, oh, the fertilizer being eaten by the rats.
Yep.
And he's like, I'm not seeing now. I bought the shit on Tuesday, and the rats ate right through it. And then they're like, huh, that's weird. Still not completely believe it. Like, and then she's like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like, I caught one. And it was like, what?
And she was so proud of it too. She's like, I caught one of the little bastards.
Guess what? I don't blame her. I'd be proud too.
Absolutely.
I was surprised when she said that.
That rat was going nuts in that cage, like full on body checking against the walls. And Jonathan's trying to take a picture of this damn thing. Like, the fact he didn't take a picture of it when he stopped was kind of annoying. I was like, the non-reaction of, oh, stop moving, I should take a picture now, while I can see like this whole thing being gross.
Yeah.
And then turns out that as Nancy's going through the phone book, she gets a lead, and looks like it was like a fertilizing company, like a landscaping company kind of situation, if I remember correctly. And she got a lead thinking, oh, their fertilizers possibly also be eaten or have some situation of rats. So she's calling around in the good old yellow pages. No, before the times of the internet. It's very much like a nostalgia kind of episode.
Oh yeah.
And then as they leave, Nick, you want to say something?
No, I was just saying it definitely felt nostalgic with everything that, like you said, with Yellow Pages, and then like the landline, like we were saying before, like definitely a lot of things that like we remember. We were still, there, for that, but definitely the kids of today, like, they would have no idea.
Yeah. And then we see the rat wonderfully explodes, or explodes isn't even the right word, honestly. It's just more like a.
I think explodes works because it
I think implode maybe. Looked like it was from within.
No, I think it's explode because it splatters around. It's not a big explosion, but it's a little mini explosion where it just kind of bursts open.
It's kind of like a firecracker in a way, just kind of like a small like pop.
Yep.
But like thing is, like, I don't want to use explode too much because like to me explode like it splatters all over the place. It's very contained. It's just like
it's rat popcorn.
Yes, rat popcorn. That's a good way to put it.
Rat popcorn. Okay.
That's honestly a decent description because it kind of just turns inside out, and then we have the gooiness, and then we see the goo start fucking moving. I'm like, oh, and walks like around, and like it kind of coalesced into an actual entity of like a corpse rat.
Yeah,
and then scurries off because it did look like it eventually had legs. And scurry off somewhere. I'm like, okay. And as we know, as we going full circle, we found the monster Billy, and that thing had things that were like moving out from like of its limbs.
Yep.
By itself. So like, it is.
I believe we were supposed to be under the impression that the little rat monster from Driscoll's house went and became a part of this.
Yeah, that's what I assume. That's what I assume too.
Yeah.
It's joining the. We talked about Hive Mind in last season. It is literally joining the conglomerate of ooze. Yeah, fun episode though. We talked for a while on this one, but this was one, honestly, I'm gonna give it. I'm saying right now, this will be a high score for me.
Okay. Now I have one final question. So rewinding slightly back to the Russian code.
Yes.
So the message is. The week is long. The silver cat feeds when blue meets yellow in the west. A trip to China sounds nice if you tread lightly. Now that we know a little bit more, slightly more context as to what's going on, does your thought process change as to what that code means? Because I know last episode you mentioned the potential of them drilling a hole from China to the United States.
Honestly, I'm still in that theory because not China, but like you're using the idiom of China, like digging a hole through to China.
Yep.
I'm kind of with that theory though, because the fact that we have the laser is a blue color, the gate is more of an orange color, so like that kind of makes sense. The blue to orange. No, the whole China comment maybe don't try and make a transition from one to the other. And then the silver cat, I do not know. Maybe that's referring to the actual beam, like the device. Okay. So obviously the gate's back open.
Nick, I don't think you were on that episode when we talked about it, but I asked Connor, what do you think this code means? Because last season we had that code with Eleven's mom that we tried to figure out what it meant. Do you have any thoughts as to what this code means?
I don't have any
wild
direct
theories?
Thoughts. I don't have any direct thoughts as to like, oh, I think it like absolutely means this. But I think if I were to, I don't know, like take the first letter of each word and maybe like write them out and like kind of like unscramble or like do one of those like acronym things, I feel like you
so might. You think it's a code within a code?
I think it's a code within a code. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will continue to ask this every episode because we do get a little bit more, and we do find out the exact meaning of the code. So
I'm looking it up right now. I'm going
to keep asking you guys until we find out, so you can see how close or far away you were from the right answer.
Okay.
See, I don't think it'll be. I will cut back on Nick's comment because of the fact that if they would do a code like that, then the scrambling of letters would be in the Russian alphabet, not the American alphabet.
If that were the case, that would be a good solution because that would mean that Dustin, Steve, and Robin have a complete wrong message.
No. It is no. What I'm saying, like the message wouldn't mean nothing in that case. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're looking in the wrong place, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, but like I honestly, how the show's working, I highly doubt that. So. Anything else?
No, I think that kind of covered it. We talked about the only two questions I had were really, what's going on with the Russians and what kind of monster are we dealing with this season. We kind of already touched on that.
So I was going through my wonderful books of D&D worlds, okay, and so I was kind of thinking what this could be because I can't put my finger on it yet. I have an idea. So the first thing I thought of was like more like there is a entity in D&D called a gelatinous cube, which I know it's definitely not. But I was thinking like more like an oozy like kind of monster thing. And I really couldn't pinpoint something. And then
it could be inspired from a different monster.
Yeah, but I'm kind of curious what the kids are going to call it. But there is something that I did find that was kind of interesting, which I don't think it is, but it kind of fits the idea of like, oh, it's called a Jubilex, which is the demon lord of oozes, which is like a shapeless kind of thing. And it can like, it's a very intelligent creature that kind of controls like oozes that's around it. And like its main objective is to make all living things disintegrate. So I'm like, oh, I was like, and the reason I bumped into them is because like it is like it is the demon of oozes, I guess you can say. But okay. I don't think this thing's an ooze though. That's the thing. I think it might be something else entirely.
Yeah, I mean it's a oozy type monster, but it definitely doesn't leave a trail of ooze.
I don't think it kind of fits that thing yet. So I'm kind of curious where they're going to go with it. So okay. It's kind of things that have been like bouncing around my mind currently. But I was like, oh, little weird, D&D hold when it went down on that one. So yeah, ratings. Nick, let's go first.
I think
before we start, what's your rating from last episode?
The first one I think I would give. Yeah, I meant to text you guys. I think I would give a 8.6.
Wow, same as me on that one.
Oh,
very nice. All right, and then episode 2.
On this one, I would say just 0.2 more, so 8.8.
8.8. I was really high in this episode. I loved every single bit of it. Like, honestly, I think this might have been, for non-season finales, my favorite episode. Like, where season finale lead up. I'm giving a 9.3. I loved it. There's a lot of fun things in it. The whole Elle finding herself and like making it fun with Max, like the intersection of the boys and them like always crossing paths in the mall. The boys trying to figure what's going on. No, I guess the only downside of seeing this episode is maybe Hopper, but like that's his character developing as well. But like otherwise,
Yep.
I thought it was fantastic. A lot of fun.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Connor. I'm going to give it a 9.1. It's the start of season. I mean, the whole of season 3 is still one of my favorite seasons. But this was definitely, it was a fun episode. It was a lot of comedy throw in there. There's some dark little, obviously, moments with the whole Billy storyline. But it sets up enough to keep you interested, and there's no lull in the episode. It doesn't slow down at all. It's just constantly going, which I liked. And yeah, so 9.1. And of course, the Dustin, Steve, Robin trio is kind of what saves it for me. That's my favorite part of this episode.
Also, again, soundtrack again slaps.
Yes.
Oh, so good. Like compared to the first 2 seasons,
I have enjoyed that. So like
the first 2 seasons compared to this one so far, like the first episode is out of park every single time of music. I'm like, ooh, love it. Like, oh, and like I grew up with that music too with my father, so like that's something where like hearing Weird Al not so much, but like no, hearing Foreigner and I'm assuming Boston's going to come up one of these days and all that stuff, and so me.
I think so. I don't remember.
I'd be shocked that. I'd be shocked that More Than the Feeling was not going to be played ever in Stranger Things, because that's a sweet song.
I might have to do a deep dive this weekend just to see what 80 songs we get through the rest of the season.
That's something I definitely want to do. I would like to do maybe an episode as like a special episode of like a deep dive on the soundtracks of the music of the 80s.
I'm all for that. I know me and Mitchell did a little special episode with the movies that inspired season 1, but we can definitely do a music themed episode for the show. I'm all for that.
Because we get a lot of references of it too. Like we've seen in Billy's bedroom, the Metallica poster we have in the first season with the significance of.
All I can say is season 4, you will be jumping off the walls with the music choices they have for that season. I know you've already seen little bits and pieces, but the soundtrack for season 4 it's peak. It's phenomenal.
Okay, I will be looking forward to that. So I love music, and I've been enjoying all the music choices so far. So anything else, gentlemen, before we close out? It's been a little bit long on this one.
We need, even though Mitchell's not with us, I think we should do our Mitchell ratings just to have them in the books.
We can do that right now. That's fine with that. We can ask him when he gets on for the next episode.
Yeah.
So I will give hit from him. I'm going to go 8.72. I think he's going to really like this episode as well. He's not gone over 9 yet. He's gone over 9 once. That was the season finale of season 1. But 8.72 for me. Nick, what do you think Mitchell's going to give?
8.12.
1.2. To be fair, he gave last episode an 8.47.
Yeah. I'm thinking these are close to him, so I think it's gonna be close to season 1. So I'm gonna say probably 8.59. Kind of right in the middle there.
Okay. I'm going high on this one. I think Mitchell's going to really like this episode.
It's hard to read what Mitchell will like and not like sometimes.
Usually for him, I tend to try to shoot lower than what I think it is. But I have a gut feeling that he's going to love this. I could definitely see this one getting close to 9 for him. I thought it was great. So anyway, follow us on our socials on Twitter and Instagram. And without further ado, thank you for listening to this long hour 20 episode on this one. And we'll be back for next week for the next episode, Chapter 3. Have a good one.